Welcome, everybody, live from New York. This is Spirit Matters. I'm Dayal, along with Acyuta Gopi, who still has hair, for those who are wondering, and Kishor Chandra, who is still alive, for those who were wondering, after we got back from India just a day or two ago, as we're recovering and recalibrating back into whatever day, time, and year we are in. Thanks for joining us. This podcast has been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back into gear and really glad to just kind of be spending time together. How are you guys doing, Achuta and Kishore?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. I was listening to the podcast yesterday, and it was so lovely to hear you, Dayal, and Achuta. Achuta. I was just telling Dayal that I was like super inspired by the podcast yesterday of just like not procrastinating and shaving your head and all that stuff. And I've been procrastinating on a lot of things. And I made like four major life decisions this morning. Like I've been up since 4 a.m. and I was just like, I'm gonna be like a cheetah. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. Do it. Press the button. Do it. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling decluttered, and I do believe I know what day it is.
Mhm.
So
I'm
yeah.
sitting at a bus stop. I don't have a home anymore. I am looking for a place to stay this evening, but I'm very decluttered.
What's crazy? It's like, and no pressure. It's just all thanks to you, Chuta.
Achuta.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is awesome. And it kind of gives me the motivation also to continue to like declutter, even if it looks sketchy along the way.
Hmm.
It'll work out. Don't give up your homes, guys. Not
We should get Marie Kondo on the show. You think she's a spiritualist? Would she like to be on the show?
yet. That's what I should do with my hair. Like, thank you for your service. And then,
Thank you for your service. Yeah, that's a question you can ask your hair. Does it spark joy? Is it
yeah, no, that's what
timeless? And does it serve a purpose?
that's
Look
exactly
in
what
the mirror and
happened.
ask your hair those three questions.
I did.
Jeffrey Ackler's got a shaved head. We got a lot of shaved heads on this podcast. I haven't shaved my head in a long time. I just happened to do it before India, and so I happen to. It's just one of those things.
And then you
Anyways,
feel like renewed and rejuvenated.
yeah. Kishore, we left off yesterday. We were sharing about at the very end this motivation, and this what I got this revelation of this question of things mattering or not. Like really, like my spiritual practice or anything. The question of like, do I really matter? Does Krishna really care if I do this, that, or the other? And does Krishna really matter to me in a sense? Actually, like I'm willing to put so many. If there's a commitment that I need to keep with something, it's in my calendar. Then yes, I keep it. But when something comes up spiritual life related, it's easy to just kind of move it around. It doesn't really matter. So this kind of concept of does Krishna really matter to me as a person? Do I treat God as a person? Like the whole idea of Krishna consciousness of like God being a person and not just like a person up in the sky, but like an intimate person that has feelings and that cares and that is attentive and sensitive in ways. Um, and that like what I do matters and makes a difference. And do I really matter? So like it's kind of becomes this apathy of like, oh, my spiritual practice doesn't really matter because whatever. We kind of left off in that space. And we can pick up there, or I just wanted to just check in with you because you're landing here. I mean, I landed yesterday. We're just getting back up, but we haven't heard from you yesterday. And so just wanted to know if there's anything on your mind and heart that you felt you wanted to bring into how was India? What are you coming in with today? Or if we wanted to pick up where we left off, those are some options for us.
Yeah, I heard the podcast yesterday and I heard that moment. And when Achita had her like, whoa moment, I also had the same. I was just like, whoa. And I think it's a great place to pick up from because I, one realization that I had, I was really meditating on this because I thought it was such an important point, is that if I think, and I'm speaking for myself, I have a lot of control issues and I like things to be like extremely organized, and if it's just slips out of order a tiny bit, I get really upset and apathetic. And I was thinking about this, about what you were saying yesterday. I was like, okay, let's take it a step further. So if I think I don't matter to Krishna, and if Krishna doesn't matter to me, and I'm just like in that space, I also feel like when I am trying to control every single tiny little detail in my life, it's because I don't really trust Krishna. And I don't really trust that there's like a higher plan for me. I don't really trust that I'm protected. I don't really trust that I am not alone, you know? And I'm just trying to like hold on so intensely to like, you know, temporary things, because we know that material life is temporary. And it's such a something that I've noticed for myself is it's extremely anxiety inducing to try to think that like I have the control. So I'm convincing myself that I think I have the control, and then like holding on to it for dear life. It's like it creates so much anxiety. And I think I think it's a really big like paradigm shift for us as spiritualists to like actually believe that Krishna loves us. Like one day in my bhakti, I hope that I can actually truly believe that, and believe that I have love for Krishna. But I think even if we like take it away from, just shift the focus off of spiritual life for a second, it's really interesting to just look at like general life, or I don't know, for lack of a better word, secular life. It's like when you boil a lot of things down, the relationships that we're having, or the interactions that we're having with people are like highly transactional. There's only like a few people in our life that we're having like deep, meaningful connections with. And and some people aren't having deep, meaningful connections, and they feel alone. And I think that so much of life is just structured in a way to be transactional, and therefore becomes exploitative, because it's like I'm not actually connecting from the level of the soul. And that's actually reinforcing the idea that I'm alone, that nothing matters, apathy, nihilism, etc. And I think that's why so many people are looking for something. They're seeking something, whether it's in spiritual life, which is a positive thing, or whether it's in not so sustainable things like, I don't know, drugs or whatever. And everyone is looking for something. Everyone is looking for that thing to fill them up, because I think, and I'll end here because I'm ranting, but I feel like this idea of not believing, or not wanting to believe that we're alone, is so like paramount. And I think that when people, I think people, and I'm including myself in this, people, I think people and myself, like, when I don't show up for my practices, when I don't show up for my relationships, when I don't show up for my, you guys were talking about this yesterday, like not showing up for japa, or not having like good quality spiritual practices, it's like I'm actually bolstering and strengthening the belief that it doesn't matter. And I'm actually strengthening the belief that I am alone, and that like I'm just doing this just because, there's no actually like deep meaning behind it. And I think that that's such a shift, that it's a hard shift. I feel like it's this prod. We need to be prodded a little bit, like, come on, like get it together. And just being in India was such a powerful experience, because I mean, India is always a powerful experience. But this, Dayal, I was having issues with control, and like things being a little chaotic. Like India is a little chaotic. And I was just having like a lot of internal issues with just like, but I need to like make sure that everything goes like this, and it has to be at this time, and it has to be like this. And I noticed that my reaction to that was just like apathy. I was just like, whatever, I'm over it, And it's like, I feel like we do that so much in life. It's like, okay, it's not going how I want it, or I'm not feeling that reciprocation with Krishna. I'm over it. Or not even I'm over it, but I'll just kind of half-ass it, And it's like, that sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to kind of put my best foot forward all the time. But anyway, I've been talking long enough, so I'd love to hear from from all of you, because I think it's a great topic to continue on.
Yeah, my mom used to, well, not used to, but she still says, like, if we had faith in Krishna, then we should act like it.
Hmm.
And she says it so much. If you have faith in Krishna, now act like it. Act as though we actually believe that Krishna, like you said, is a person with feelings, with desires, with different likes and dislikes, all of these things. And I feel like what also gets us, it's so insidious because in spiritual life you'll start chanting or you'll start a practice, and then you can kind of see a difference sometimes. And then, like we said yesterday, the mind comes in. It's like, you got time. What's the worst that could happen? And a lot of times in spirituality, then they try to bring up the worst that could happen to try and keep the mind in line, right? But if you stop chanting, if you even stop following any regulative practices or anything, the worst thing is that, okay, at first, nothing happens. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? It's nothing. The changes are so small and insidious, and if you blink you miss them, and it's like, and so like you said, it kind of reinforces this idea that there's nothing waiting for me, because even if you do a slew, you could, and this is what happens, people see other people doing a slew of bad things and nothing happens. But material nature doesn't actually work like that. Might be slow, might be real gradual, but material nature has the memory of the universe, right? Nobody gets off scot-free or gets away from material nature, and that's not just for bad things, but also for good things. But where we can kind of feel the shift when we start implementing good things, when we stop doing those good things, the negative shift is so gradual and so slow and so slippery and so like tangled that we could miss it until we're in a situation then where we really need to cry out for help. And then we say, oh my gosh, how did this happen so suddenly? It didn't. We'll fool ourselves into thinking it did, but it didn't. It wasn't like, oh, how did I just wind up here? And so I think that I fool myself with that way too much. What's the worst that could happen? I've got time. I could do it in an hour. What's the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen, I feel like, we run on this personal experience thing. What I've experienced. Like, what have we experienced? It's really nothing. But we'll tell ourselves, no, my experience is, even if I skip a day, it's fine. What's the worst that can happen? And I started thinking about it as if I'm like, if I had some sort of terminal illness, or if I had something that needed constant medical attention, like, you better believe I'd be up on my regimen, because what's the worst that could happen? It means something to me then. So I have to bring my spirituality to a place where it actually means something to me in this like qualitative 3D kind of material world. It has to mean something.
Hmm. I love what both of you guys are saying. Um, what I'm finding that's empowering is the idea that my choices matter, and that sometimes I think my choices don't matter because when I make a choice, there's not an immediate consequence. Um, and the consequences sometimes, or the reaction is sometimes delayed. And in that space, I think that my choices don't matter. And then what happens is every time I reinforce this idea that my choices don't matter. When we were in India, we were listening to a Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, also known as the spiritual scientist, gave led a session, a discussion with her group, and he spoke about how our choices have consequences or reactions, And he said one of the consequences or of our choices isn't just, what happens, I punch a wall and my finger hurts, or I eat an apple and I feel good, or I eat ice cream and I don't feel good, or whatever it is. He said one of the reactions is the proclivity to make a similar choice in the future. Like the impression that is made towards doing similar things more impulsively, because so much of it happens on the subconscious mind. We make choices, and there's so much studies. I haven't done it deeply, but like they do these studies where like we actually make choices before we consciously make them. Like there's like a split second or before where our subconscious mind has already made a choice before we actively, like, I'm going to reach out and push that button, and I reach out and start to do it. But before I physically start to do that, there's like a subconscious part of me that's actually already made that choice, and it's moving forward. And so the space in which that choices are made shrinks when we make the same choices over time. So we're actually like every choice we make, we're actually conditioning ourselves towards making similar choices. And conditioning isn't a bad thing, because sometimes we want to condition. Like even in sports, we use the word conditioning. I'm doing some conditioning because we want to build up our strength and our ability to, or when we play music, sometimes we might call it conditioning practice. Like you want to build up certain habits in a positive way. So conditioning isn't good or bad necessarily, but it's just the in which way is it going. And I think so much of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and spiritual life is this idea that we are being conditioned at every moment, whether we like it or not. We think, oh, I have free will, which we do have free will, but in some ways, free will, Srila Prabhupada mentioned in a promo, free will means choosing Krishna or Maya. who you want to be subordinate to or to serve in one sense, because that's our dharma, our nature. And I think that we have free will, but really free will is determining in which way do I want to be. And I use this word because I know that it'll sound standoffish for some, but like, how do I want to be? How do I want to condition my mind? In what way do I want to build the grooves of my consciousness to flow? We talk about like boundaries and the idea of like, in one sense, freedom. Boundaries creates freedom, because if I want water to flow in a particular direction, I don't just pour that water onto the ground with no boundaries. This water's free. It's freedom. It's like, no, it's not going anywhere. I want the water to flow from point A to point B. I'm going to build a canal, and then I'm going to place the water within that structured place, and it has freedom to flow now. It has freedom to flow in the direction that I want it to. So freedom means choosing, in one sense, freedom is choosing the destination and then conditioning ourselves in such a way that we can make it towards the destination. And every little choice, and I think that's why spiritual life becomes so powerful and integrative into every aspect of our lives. We have our material life and our spiritual life, and how do I balance them? In the sense, like, how do I integrate and bring them completely together? And that's why like retreats and things are powerful, whether it's in India or elsewhere. I mean, India is very powerful, but retreats is that place where you really start to integrate, like everything becomes part of your spiritual life, your morning routine, your meals, your conversations with people, like the time you spend doing whatever. And that every choice I'm making is conditioning me towards faith in Krishna or faith in material nature, faith in my own ego, faith in my mind. Like we're always building faith in something. We're constantly building faith in something. And my choices build my faith in X, Y, and Z. And it's like the question of spiritual life is, what do I want to build faith in? And I love how you mentioned, both of you, when I choose not to, when I let my spiritual practices go, I'm actually, through that act of negligence, and I don't want to use negligence in a harsh sense because that can kind of come off like, oh, you're negligent. Now I'm guilty for being negligent. But through the act of non-performance, if I let that go on too long, sometimes we miss, sometimes we slip, sometimes there's that because it's a difference between missing something out of just like anxiety, I'm struggling, I'm trying, and missing out of like, it doesn't really matter. The consciousness that I bring with it. If I miss out of a sense of it doesn't really matter, I'm increasing faith in that apathy. And that's a dangerous thing. Missing because I'm just like struggling, we're working through. That's actually an expression of sincerity. But missing because I think it doesn't matter. It's like you let that go for too long, you just end up nowhere.
I think that's what we hear in Bhagavad Gita, but it's so subtle. And Krishna's literally, once again, he's like, whatever it is you focus on for long enough will become your reality. So like you said, Kishor, the more that we sit there and we're like, well, we're apathetic, or I used the term one time, like spiritual neuropathy. Like if you ever have a situation where the nerves get damaged and like, well, you got to fix it fast or you'll get neuropathy and you'll stop feeling. This is us spiritually.
Is that what
And
neuropathy means?
yeah, right. You like my
I'm
technical?
I love the technical term. I'm like, for all the people, somebody out there is grateful I asked that question, including myself. Neuropathy means you stop feeling.
Yeah, this neuropathy, you stop getting the sensations and all of the whatever tingles and all things that go with the nerves and the nerve endings.
Great
They
word.
they stop functioning. And so I'm like, if we get a case of spiritual neuropathy, then the actual thing would be to act faster, to run closer, faster towards the goal, because we have this apathy. And Radhanath Maharaj has said, the opposite of spiritual life is not material life. It's like the opposite of our devotional service and spiritual life is this apathy, this
Did you use
lack
the
of.
word neuropathy?
No, but he did use apathy.
I would have been impressed.
All right. But like, well, you too can use this spiritual neuropathy if you had watched several seasons of Grey's Anatomy. So if you have a Grey's Anatomy WebMD under your belt, you're fine. Go for it. But like, I feel like when we are building our faith in the fact that Krishna is not going to save us, does not have any control, even to an extent exists, but doesn't really, because what's the worst that could happen, right? And we start this slip and slide. I feel like then when it comes back onto us and we're feeling a little bit then dejected or drawn out or whatever, then we kind of put the blame back on Maya, illusion, material nature. It's her fault. It's not mine. It's her fault. And I feel like my way of looking at Maya's part now is really simple. And Jiva Goswami and so many Goswamis have kind of boiled down her functions really simply. She creates this material atmosphere, and then all she has to do, they say, have a hand in creating the mind. That's kind of it. And then she creates just one small thing, the identification with it. The rest is us grappling with this sixth sense of the mind. So, I feel like Maya's role in this is when we are like flowing on this course, right? We've created these boundaries, we've done all this work. Her job is super simple. She comes in and says, "Are you sure? You sure? Are you sure this is what you want?" At every given moment, are you sure? Even when we think we're asking for something material, are you sure? Sure, I could. Okay. Are you sure? And I feel like, what if those moments when we're thinking what's the worst that could happen, and then we drop off on our spiritual path and we feel like nothing happens, our first question is, well, why didn't Krishna reciprocate? Where I don't feel that connection anymore. Well, why not? Why isn't Krishna doing something? What if those moments are actually Krishna's protection? Srila Prabhupada would say, if we really understood how precarious our situation here was, we wouldn't waste so much time. But when we do find ourselves wasting time and nothing happens, what if that is Krishna literally handling us out of all the things that should have immediately happened? Now Krishna says, don't worry, I'll protect you. So then we say, oh yeah, I did that, nothing happened. Krishna's on the back end, like, you don't know what happened. I did a lot. Moved, covered with an umbrella, all kinds of things. And we are missing the miracle because we've decided that what we saw was that nothing bad happened. But what we missed was that the protection over us was what caused nothing bad to happen.
I have something I wanted to share as a takeaway, but I also wanted to invite Kishor if there's something that you wanted to share before we close.
I have a lot of things on my mind, but we're running out of time. One thing I'll say is that I remember when I was a teenager, Acyuta, you brought up this neuropathy. When I was a teenager, I got facial paralysis. And so half of my face literally just like completely stopped working. Like it just drooped. And it was like kind of scary. I was like 15 years old and like I went to the hospital, and at that time they didn't have like I don't know, I guess there wasn't enough research done into this like condition that I was having. And so they just gave me like some medicine, and they were like, yeah, I might go back to normal in a few months. Like we'll just see. And a nurse who was there, she suggested that I get acupuncture. And I'm a firm believer in acupuncture. And so I went to acupuncture for the first time in my life. Yes, Bell's palsy. Exactly, Jeffrey. And I went to acupuncture, and literally the acupuncturist put the needles into my face and attached it to electricity and just like shocked my muscles back into life. And my face was back to normal in like a few weeks. And I was just thinking about that because I was like, sometimes, and not sometimes, a lot of the times I am accepting that I am going to go off the path a little bit. I'm going to go into those dark spaces. I'm going to go into those apathetic spaces of thinking, oh, Krishna didn't reciprocate. So that means, et cetera, that nothing matters. And I just really was meditating on how powerful it is, how the spiritual practices in bhakti are just like, I've been really seeing them as that like electric, just like revitalizing shock. Yeah, clear that we need sometimes. It's like a kirtan or a sangha or a pilgrimage. It's like sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of the times we really need that stuff. And I think that part of the reason why people have been going through it so much, I mean, the material world is intense as it is, but like COVID has been crazy, man. Like it has been insane. And just like the amount of anxiety and depression and loneliness and like being stuck in your houses and like being afraid of people, I feel like has increased that even more because it's decreased our ability to just like go and be in a kirtan or like go on a trip or go, like Dayal and I, we led this pilgrimage in India, and it was so funny because everyone was happy that we were there, but they were also like, you made it. Like you were the ones that made it, because originally they were all,
what are you doing here?
There were all these different groups that were going to come, but they all canceled because of COVID. And we were just like, we're going. And it's like, there's so much fear in the material world, and, for good cause, like stuff is scary. But I feel like and maybe this is something we can talk about more tomorrow. It's like, because I have this question actually. It's like, how do I know that I'm going to be caught? I ask that question a lot. It's like, how do I know if I get on that plane, everything's going to be okay? How do I know that Krishna is going to catch me? Like, do I know? Or like, is that faith? I'm not sure. And it's such a mind twist, because I feel like so much of life, we want that assurance and reassurance that like everything's going to go the way that I want it to go. But that's actually, you were bringing this up, Acyuta, like that's actually Maya, it's like when I think that I am the controller and that my plans are going to work out, it's like, that's a recipe for just disappointment, because, I'm not the controller. And I think that that's so much of spiritual life, is just like allowing yourself to be humbled by life and like learning from it, because it's like, we are going to have those moments where life is going to humble us. It's like they say, be humble or be humbled, right? It's like it's going to happen. And when it does happen, it's like, and I think that this is the key, and I'll end here. It's like, when it does happen, like when life does humble me, or like when I have those big moments, it's like, am I learning from them? Am I digging a little bit deeper? Am I trying to be like, whoa, this was reciprocation, this was Krishna, like, this was him keeping me safe? Or am I just, like you said, Acyuta, like, am I just missing the miracle? And being like, cool, great, it happened. Okay, let's keep on going, And I think fine tuning our spiritual senses to actually like see like, wow, this is Krishna's protection. Wow, this is a miracle. Wow, everything is happening for me. It's like, that's really where the magic is. And so I think that apathy is like, it's like I love this word that you use, Acyuta, like it's so insidious, it just creeps in, and then we don't even notice when we become apathetic.
Chuta's got more to say. I got something to say too. I'm gonna save it all. We don't have a show tomorrow. Today's Friday. Is today Friday? Tomorrow's Saturday. So we're picking up on Monday. I have a verse and a purport that came to my mind that I want to read. We'll pick up for Chuta's Savior thought, unless we can share it as a closing thought. We're gonna invite our closing hitter, our closing pitcher, Kimberly, to share with us some takeaways. Anybody else got some takeaways? You can put them in the chat. And what are we walking away with today, Kimberly?
All right. We're walking today with, when we show up for our practices and relationships, we enforce the belief that life matters and that we're not alone. Our choices have reactions and leave impressions on our mind. And whether spiritual or material, we all have faith in something, and our choices conditions and builds that faith up.
I love that. That's what I'm taking away, is that my spiritual practice isn't just about feeling better, although it can do that. It's not just about, qualifying me to enter into the spiritual realm, but it's conditioning my mind in a certain way that the more I do that, I'm less, when I choose not to, it's actually building a conditioning that's taking me away from it. So thank you. Closing word, Acyuta, if you have any.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I love it all. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this one is, Kishor, you were saying, how do we know? How do we know that we'll actually be caught? And what you also said, which was really poignant, was when I get on that plane, how do I know that everything will be okay? And the thing is, every time we get on a plane, we don't know. We have no idea what the pilot's going to do, what anybody's going to do. And I feel like this is Srila Prabhupada's point. It never stops us from acting. It never stops us from getting on the plane. Even if we are exercising this shaky faith, it doesn't stop us from crossing the street. It doesn't stop us from getting up in the morning. It doesn't stop us from acting. And so even though we have this causeless unwillingness to surrender, right, to give over that faith, somehow every day it doesn't stop us from acting. So it shouldn't stop us from acting, even spiritually.
Love it. Thank you. Jeff Ackler is saying that you guys have similar outfits today. You're twinsies, and you'd be even more twinsies if you just shaved your head. Or Jeff could grow some braids. There are two options in this equation. And so, love you guys so much. It's so good to be all back together. Kishor, Acyuta, and all of our live audience here, and all of our listeners. Thank you guys so much. Please be well. If you would like to, I don't know, what are we sharing today? We have a kirtan training coming up. We have a kirtan training in Mexico at the first week of April. Please come to Mexico with us. We just had someone sign up yesterday. We got a few spots left. That's the next big thing coming up in the immediate future. Would love to have you have an 8-day immersive kirtan experience with us. All other kinds of cool things on bhaktisiddhanta.org and our Rise platform. Please rate and review our podcast if you love us. If you don't leave a negative review. Just don't say anything. We're not for the negative reviews. But love you guys so much. Please be well. Take care, and we'll see you next time.